Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from our channel. In this video, we'll be highlighting American celebrities who have passed away today and in the last few days, along with other notable figures from around the world. Before we proceed, we kindly ask you to show your love and support by giving this video a like. It means a lot to us. Thank you. And now let's begin.
1.
Igor Yakovlevich Zolotovitsky, June 18, 1961 to January 14, 2026, was a respected Soviet and Russian actor, theater educator, television director, and presenter whose influence shaped generations of performers. From 2013 until his passing, he served as director of the Moscow Art Theater School, one of Russia's most prestigious artistic institutions. Over his career, he received multiple national honors, including the title of Honored Artist of the Russian Federation and the Figaro Prize, recognizing his lasting impact on Russian culture. Born in Tashkent, Zolotovitsky graduated from the Moscow Art Theater School in 1983 under renowned mentor Viktor Monakov. Just a few years later, he returned as a professor, beginning a decades-long commitment to teaching and mentorship. Alongside his work in theater, he became a familiar face on Russian television, directing popular programs and hosting educational broadcasts that brought culture and learning to a wider audience. In addition to leading the Moscow Art Theater School, he also served as deputy artistic director of the Moscow Chekhov Art Theater, helping guide its creative vision during a pivotal period. Known for his dedication, discipline, and passion for the craft, Zolotovitsky was widely admired by students, colleagues, and audiences alike. He was married to actress and director Vera Karybina, and together they raised two sons who followed in their parents' footsteps, graduating from the Russian Institute of Theater Arts. Igor Zolotovitsky passed away in Moscow at the age of 64, leaving behind a powerful artistic legacy that continues to resonate on stage, on screen, and in classrooms across Russia.
2.
Emmy-winning producer and director Tom Cheranonis, best known for his work on Seinfeld, has passed at 86. Cheranonis passed Monday at his home in Florence, Oregon, a representative announced. Born September 11, 1939 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Cheranonis graduated from the University of New Mexico in 1961 and received a master's degree in telecommunications from the University of Alabama in 1966. He also served 4 years as a lieutenant in the United States Navy. He moved to Hollywood in 1975 and landed his first job in the industry as a production manager for General Hospital. His first job as a television director was in 1986 with the Babes in the Woods episode on CBS comedy My Sister Sam. It was in 1990 that he began work on Seinfeld as a director and producer in a total of 85 episodes over the first 5 seasons, earning a DGA award for directing the contest episode in 1993, as well as an Emmy Award as a producer. Several of Cheranonis' other Seinfeld episodes are considered highlights of the series, including the Chinese restaurant and the parking garage. But here's what changed everything. Cheranonis left Seinfeld after season 5 at Jerry Seinfeld's request. He was tired of the same thing. I guess he just wanted somebody else, another presence, to try to keep it fresh, Cheranonis said. Cheranonis also directed 56 episodes of News Radio and worked on Welcome Back Carter, Caroline in the City, and Ellen.
3.
John Cunningham, a prolific Broadway actor who appeared in acclaimed productions including the original stagings of Cabaret, 177, Company, 6 Degrees of Separation, and The Sisters Rosenzweig, has passed at 93. His family announced that he passed Tuesday, January 2nd in his Rhine, New York home. Born June 22, 1932 in Auburn, New York, Cunningham served in the Army before attending the Yale School of Drama, where he made a lifelong friend in classmate and future talk show host Dick Cavett. After Yale, Cunningham launched the career that would span 70 years, including early TV roles on soaps The Secret Storm, The Doctors, Another World, and Search for Tomorrow. But here's how it all started. Following an audition for director Moss Hart, the 29-year-old Cunningham made his debut in the 1960 national and international touring company of My Fair Lady. His second Broadway production came in 1968, when he was cast in the original staging of Cabaret, succeeding Bert Convy in the role of Clifford Bradshaw. A long stream of significant roles in Broadway productions would follow, among them Nikos in Zorba, Peter in Company, John Adams in 177, Flan Kittredge in 6 Degrees of Separation opposite Stockard Channing, and Captain E.J. Smith in Titanic. On the film side, Cunningham played grandfather to Matt Damon's character in 1988's Mystic Pizza, the father of Ethan Hawke's character in 1989's Dead Poet Society, and the father of Damon's character in 1993's School Ties. His many TV credits include Law and Order, 30 Rock, The Good Wife, Damages, and Blue Bloods.
4.
Ahn Soo-kyu, and one of South Korea's most iconic actors and the pillar of its film industry, has died at 74. The news was confirmed by his agency, Artist Company, which announced that he passed away on January 4. A funeral honoring his extraordinary life and career is scheduled for January 9th and is expected to draw many of the nation's leading figures from film and entertainment. Known affectionately as the nation's actor, Ahn Soo-kyu built a career that spanned more than 6 decades, appearing in hundreds of films and shaping generations of Korean cinema. He began acting before the age of 10 and steadily rose to prominence, earning widespread respect for both his powerful performances and his calm, dignified presence off-screen. Among his most memorable works are A Fine Windy Day, Two Cops, The Eternal Empire, Festival, and The Warrior. Beyond his on-screen achievements, Ahn was admired for his humility and his lifelong commitment to elevating Korean film. He became a symbol of artistic integrity, inspiring actors, directors, and audiences alike. South Korea's president described him as a figure who left a lasting mark on the nation's cultural history, praising his character as much as his talent. Ahn Soo-kyu is survived by his wife, Oh So-young, whom he married in 1985, and their 2 sons. His legacy continues through the films he leaves behind and the influence he had on Korean cinema as a whole.
5.
Italian television is mourning the loss of Raffaella Brigozzi, the unmistakable voice who became inseparable from OK, The Price is Right, one of the country's most beloved game shows. Her passing was announced by Eva Zanicki, who shared the news with fans on Instagram, remembering Brigozzi as the historic voice that accompanied viewers for years. No official cause of death has been released. For nearly 15 years, Raffaella Brigozzi guided audiences through the program, announcing hosts, prizes, and contestants from the very first season in 1983 until 1999. Her voice became a constant presence in Italian homes, helping shape the identity of the show across multiple eras. After her departure, the role was later taken over by Matteo Cenote and Alejandro Riotti. Born in La Spezia in June 1959, Brigozzi's career was closely tied to OK, The Price is Right, which over the years was hosted by some of Italy's most familiar television faces, including Gigi Sabani, Eva Zanicki, Emanuela Filero, and Maria Teresa Ruta in its final edition, from 2000 to 2001. In a memorable moment in November 2012, Brigozzi made a surprise appearance on Zanicki's show Diva. The emotional reunion revealed the bond behind the scenes, as Brigozzi thanked Zanicki, saying it had been an honor to work with her, and expressed deep affection. That moment, now revisited by fans, stands as a powerful reminder of the warmth and humanity behind the voice that defined a generation of television viewers.
Céline Marie Claudette Dion was born on March 30, 1968 in Charlemagne, Quebec, a small town just outside Montreal, Canada. She arrived as the youngest of 14 children in a family where music was not just a hobby, but the very fabric of their daily existence. Her parents, Adhémar and Thérèse Dion, were both musicians who instilled a deep love for performance in all their children. The Dion household was constantly filled with the sounds of instruments, singing, and laughter, creating an environment where young Céline's extraordinary talent would inevitably flourish. Growing up in such a large family meant that resources were often scarce, but love and creativity were abundant. The Dions ran a small piano bar called Le Vieux Baril, where the children would regularly perform for customers. This became Céline's first stage, a place where she learned to command attention and connect with an audience even as a small child. By the age of 5, she was already performing publicly at her brother's wedding, demonstrating a voice that seemed impossibly powerful for someone so young. Her parents quickly recognized that Céline possessed something truly special, a gift that transcended the considerable musical talents already present in the family. The family's modest circumstances meant that pursuing Céline's dream required sacrifice and unwavering faith. Her mother, Thérèse, became her fiercest advocate and wrote Céline's first song when she was just 12 years old. The song, titled Ce n'était qu'un rêve, meaning it was only a dream, would become the key that unlocked Céline's future. Thérèse recorded a demo tape of Céline singing this song and sent it to René Angélil, a successful music manager and producer in Quebec. When René first heard that tape, he was moved to tears by the raw emotion and incredible vocal control displayed by this unknown child from a small town. René Angélil saw in Céline Dion not just talent, but potential for global stardom. He believed in her so completely that he mortgaged his own home to finance her first album. This act of faith would bind their destinies together in ways neither could have imagined at the time. Under René's guidance, Céline began her professional career in the French-speaking world, quickly becoming a sensation in Quebec and France. She won numerous competitions and awards as a teenager, including representing Switzerland at the Eurovision Song Contest in 1988. Where she emerged victorious with the song Ne partez pas sans moi. Céline's transition from French-language star to international superstar required a bold decision that many questioned at the time. In the late 1980s, at the height of her success in the French-speaking world, she made the calculated choice to step away from the spotlight to learn English and reinvent herself for the global market. She spent 18 months studying the language intensively, working with vocal coaches, and developing a more mature artistic persona. This period of transformation was risky, as she essentially disappeared from public view when her career was thriving, but René Angélil's strategic vision proved correct. Her English-language debut album, Unison, released in 1990, introduced Céline Dion to North American audiences with a sophisticated pop sound that showcased her remarkable vocal range and emotional depth. The album produced several hit singles and established her as a formidable new voice in the competitive American music market. However, it was her 1992 album, Céline Dion, and particularly her 1993 album, The Color of My Love, that truly catapulted her to superstardom. The latter featured the massive hit The Power of Love, a soaring ballad that became her signature style and reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The mid-1990s marked Céline's ascension to the absolute pinnacle of popular music. Her 1995 album, Falling Into You, became one of the best-selling albums of all time, winning Grammy Awards for Album of the Year and Best Pop Album. The record featured hits like Because You Loved Me, which spent 6 weeks at #1, and It's All Coming Back to Me Now, a dramatic power ballad that showcased her ability to convey profound emotion through her voice. Critics who had once dismissed her as overly sentimental were forced to acknowledge her technical mastery and the genuine connection she forged with millions of listeners worldwide. Then came the song that would define her career and become permanently etched in popular culture history. In 1997, Céline recorded My Heart Will Go On, the theme song for James Cameron's epic film Titanic. Initially, she was hesitant about recording the song, and Cameron himself was uncertain about including it in the film. However, once completed, The song became a global phenomenon unlike anything seen in decades. It topped charts in virtually every country, won the Academy Award for Best Original Song, and became one of the best-selling singles of all time. The song's success was so overwhelming that it transcended music, becoming a cultural touchstone that introduced Celine Dion to audiences who might never have otherwise discovered her work. Following this unprecedented success, Celine released Let's Talk About Love in 1997, which featured collaborations with music legends including Barbra Streisand, the Bee Gees, and Luciano Pavarotti. The album sold over 31 million copies worldwide and solidified her status as one of the most successful recording artists in history. Her vocal abilities were now recognized universally, with her 5-octave range, impeccable technical control, and ability to convey emotion making her the standard by which other vocalists were measured. She had achieved something remarkable, maintaining credibility as a serious artist while also achieving massive commercial success across multiple demographics and cultures. In 1999, Celine made another bold career move by announcing she would take a hiatus from recording and touring to focus on her personal life. At the peak of her fame, she stepped away, demonstrating that family and personal fulfillment mattered more to her than career momentum. This decision surprised many in the industry but earned her respect for prioritizing what truly mattered. When she returned to performing in 2003, it was with a groundbreaking residency show at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas titled A New Day. This residency revolutionized the concept of what a Las Vegas show could be, combining her powerful vocals with elaborate production values and theatrical elements. The A New Day residency at Caesars Palace ran for 5 years, with over 700 performances that attracted millions of fans from around the world and grossed over $400 million. The show's success proved that Celine could command audiences night after night with the same intensity and vocal excellence, establishing a new model for superstar entertainments in Las Vegas that many artists would subsequently follow. She performed her final show of this residency in December 2007, having redefined what a concert residency could achieve both artistically and commercially. However, behind the glamorous performances and continued success, Celine was facing challenges that would test her in ways her career never had. Throughout her life, she had maintained an incredibly demanding schedule, performing with a level of vocal intensity that few singers could sustain. This took a toll on her instrument, and she began experiencing issues with her voice that required medical intervention. In 2011, she was forced to cancel performances due to a weakness in her vocal cords, undergoing surgery and extensive rehabilitation to address the problem. For a singer whose voice was her identity and livelihood, this health scare was deeply frightening. The vocal cord issues required Celine to work with specialists and modify her performance techniques to protect her voice for the long term. She underwent intensive therapy and had to relearn certain aspects of her singing approach to prevent further damage. The recovery process was challenging not just physically, but emotionally, as she grappled with fears about whether her voice would ever return to its former glory. Through determination and expert medical care, she successfully recovered and returned to performing, launching another Las Vegas residency in 2011 at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace, simply titled Celine. This second residency would run intermittently for over 8 years, becoming one of the most successful entertainment ventures in Las Vegas history. However, as the years progressed, Celine began experiencing new health challenges that were far more serious and mysterious than anything she had faced before. In 2021, she began suffering from severe muscle spasms that affected her ability to perform and even carry out normal daily activities. These spasms were painful, unpredictable, and increasingly debilitating, forcing her to postpone and eventually cancel scheduled performances and tours. For over a year, Celine and her medical team worked to understand what was causing these symptoms. She underwent extensive testing and tried various treatments, but the muscle spasms persisted and worsened. The uncertainty was agonizing for someone who had always been in complete control of her body and voice, who had built a legendary career on reliability and consistency. Fans around the world grew concerned as tour dates continued to be postponed with vague explanations about ongoing health issues, not knowing the full extent of what Céline was experiencing behind closed doors. In December 2022, Céline finally received a diagnosis that explained her symptoms but brought devastating news. She revealed to the world through an emotional video message that she had been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome, an extremely rare neurological disorder that affects approximately 1 in a million people. This condition causes progressive muscle stiffness and painful spasms that can be triggered by noise, touch, or emotional stress. The disorder is chronic and incurable, though symptoms can sometimes be managed with medication and therapy. For Céline, whose career depended on physical performance and vocal control, this diagnosis represented an existential threat to everything she had built. Stiff person syndrome is so rare that many doctors go their entire careers without encountering a single case. The condition occurs when the immune system mistakenly attacks the nervous system, specifically targeting enzymes that help control muscle movement. Patients experience muscle rigidity, particularly in the trunk and limbs, along with painful spasms that can be severe enough to cause falls and injuries. The unpredictability of the spasms makes it difficult to plan activities or maintain any kind of regular schedule. For a performer who needs to control every aspect of her physical presentation, from posture to breathing to facial expressions, the implications were profound and heartbreaking. While Céline's health struggles with stiff person syndrome represented a profound challenge to her career and identity as a performer, the personal losses she endured in her life cut even deeper, striking at the very core of her emotional existence. The most devastating of these losses was the death of her husband and longtime manager, René Angélil, a man who had been the architect of her career and the love of her life for decades. Their relationship was one of the most remarkable love stories in entertainment history, beginning when she was just 12 years old and he was a 38-year-old music manager who heard her voice on a demo tape. René's belief in Céline's talent was absolute from that first moment, and he dedicated his life to nurturing her career and protecting her interests. As Céline matured from a talented child into a young woman, their relationship evolved from professional to deeply personal. When Céline was 19 years old, she and René acknowledged their romantic feelings for each other, though they kept their relationship secret for years, aware of how the age difference and the dynamics of their professional relationship might be perceived. When they finally went public with their love in 1993, Céline was 25 and René was 51, and they married in a lavish ceremony in Montreal in December 1994 that was broadcast on Canadian television. Their marriage represented a true partnership in every sense, with René continuing to guide Céline's career while they built a life together. However, their journey to parenthood was marked by heartbreak and perseverance. Céline suffered a miscarriage in 2000, a loss that devastated them both. She then underwent fertility treatments in hopes of conceiving, and in 2001, their prayers were answered when she gave birth to their son, René Charles. The experience of becoming a mother was transformative for Céline, adding new dimensions to her understanding of love and vulnerability that would inform her artistic expression for years to come. The Angélil Dion family grew again in 2010 when Céline gave birth to twin boys, Eddie and Nelson, after another round of fertility treatments. At 68 years old, René became a father again, and their family felt complete. However, even as they celebrated these joyous occasions, a dark cloud was forming on the horizon. In 1999, René had been diagnosed with throat cancer and underwent successful treatment, going into remission after surgery and radiation therapy. For years, it seemed he had beaten the disease, and life continued with the demands of Céline's career and raising their children. But in December 2013, the cancer returned with a vengeance. René was diagnosed with another tumor in his throat, and this time the prognosis was far more serious. He underwent surgery to remove the tumor, but the cancer proved aggressive and resistant to treatment. As René's health declined, Céline made the painful decision to put her career on indefinite hiatus to care for him. She canceled her Las Vegas residency and devoted herself entirely to being by his side, along with their 3 sons, during what they all knew would be his final months. The toll on Céline during this period was immeasurable. She watched the man who had discovered her, believed in her, loved her, and built a life with her slowly succumb to a terrible disease. Renee required around-the-clock care, and Céline took on the role of primary caregiver with the same dedication she had brought to her performances. She fed him through a feeding tube, managed his medications, and tried to keep him comfortable as the cancer ravaged his body. The strong, confident man who had mortgaged his house to launch her career became frail and weak, barely able to communicate in his final weeks. On January 14, 2016, just 2 days before what would have been his 74th birthday, René Angelil passed away at their home in Las Vegas with Céline and their sons by his side. The loss shattered Céline in ways that her words could barely express. She had lost not just her husband but her mentor, her protector, the father of her children, and the person who had known her longer than anyone outside her immediate family. René had been a constant in her life for 33 years, and suddenly he was gone, leaving a void that nothing could fill. The grief Céline experienced after René's death was compounded by another devastating loss that came with cruel timing. Just 2 days after René passed away on January 16, 2016, Céline's older brother Daniel Dion died of cancer at the age of 59. Daniel had been battling throat, tongue, and brain cancer, and his health had been declining for some time. The Dion family, who had always been exceptionally close-knit, found themselves mourning 2 beloved members simultaneously, creating a wave of sorrow that seemed almost unbearable. Daniel had been an important figure in Céline's life, part of the large musical family that had nurtured her talent from childhood. The fact that both he and René died of cancer within 48 hours of each other created a surreal nightmare for Céline and her family. She had to plan and attend 2 funerals in the same week, standing strong for her children and her mother while her own heart was breaking into pieces. The public watched as this intensely private grief played out on a very public stage, with cameras capturing Céline's anguish at René's funeral as she placed her hands on his casket and wept openly. René's funeral was held at Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal, the same church where they had married 21 years earlier. Thousands of mourners lined the streets to pay their respects, and the service was broadcast nationally in Canada. Céline demonstrated remarkable composure during her eulogy, speaking about René's dedication to their family and his unwavering support of her career. She told mourners that René wanted to die in her arms, and that wish had been granted. Her eldest son, René Charles, then just 14 years old, also spoke at the funeral, displaying a maturity and strength that clearly came from both his parents. The question of how Céline would move forward after such profound loss hung over everything. She had 3 young sons who needed her to be strong, but she was navigating the deepest grief of her life. Many wondered if she would ever return to performing, or if the losses had been too great for her to find her way back to the stage. For months, she focused entirely on her children, helping them process their grief while managing her own. The twins, Eddie and Nelson, were only 5 years old when their father died, and explaining death to children that young while drowning in her own sorrow required strength that Céline had to summon from reserves she didn't know she possessed. In the Dion family, music had always been a source of healing and connection, and it became that for Céline once again during this dark period. She found that singing, the thing that had defined her entire life, could also help her process grief in ways that words alone could not. Slowly, she began to consider returning to her Las Vegas residency, not because she needed the career validation or the money, but because performing had always been her truest form of expression. René had spent his entire adult life building her career, and she felt that honoring his memory meant continuing the work they had built together. When Céline returned to the stage in February 2016, just weeks after René's death, It was one of the most emotionally charged performances of her career. The audience gave her a standing ovation before she sang a single note, and when she opened her mouth to sing, tears streamed down her face as she channeled her grief into her performance. She dedicated shows to Renée's memory and often became overwhelmed with emotion mid-performance, but she pushed through, finding catharsis in the connection with her audience. Her vulnerability made her more relatable and beloved than ever before. Beyond René and Daniel, Céline had experienced other losses within her large family over the years. Her sister, Karine, had died in infancy before Céline was born, and her father, Ademar Dion, had passed away in 2003 after suffering a heart attack. Each loss left its mark, but the concentrated grief of 2016, losing both her husband and brother within days, created a before and after in Céline's life that would forever divide her existence into the time when René was alive and the time after he was gone. The complexity of Céline's grief was deepened by the unique nature of her relationship with René. He had been so many things to her: mentor, manager, husband, father of her children, that untangling those roles in mourning proved impossible. She had to grieve the loss of the person who had guided every major decision in her life since she was 12 years old, while simultaneously having to make all future decisions entirely on her own. The weight of that responsibility, combined with single parenthood and managing a massive career, would have crushed a lesser person. In the years following Renée's death, Céline embarked on a journey of self-discovery and reinvention that surprised many who had known her only as one half of a legendary partnership. For the first time in her adult life, she was making decisions independently, choosing her own path without Renée's guidance and protection. This transition was both terrifying and liberating, forcing her to develop aspects of herself that had remained dormant during their decades together. She began to explore her own taste in fashion, famously working with stylist Law Roach to develop a bold, high-fashion aesthetic that turned heads at events and on social media. Her new fashion choices became a form of self-expression and empowerment, with Céline embracing avant-garde designers and daring silhouettes that proclaimed her emergence as an independent woman. The transformation was so dramatic that she became a fixture at major fashion weeks, sitting front row at shows and earning praise from designers and fashion critics who had never previously associated her with cutting-edge style. This evolution represented more than just clothes. It symbolized Céline's willingness to take risks and define herself on her own terms, something she had never fully done before. Professionally, Céline continued her Las Vegas residency until June 2019. Ultimately performing over 1,000 shows across her two residencies at Caesar's Palace. These performances generated over nearly $700 million in revenue and attracted over 4.5 million fans, cementing her status as one of the most successful live performers in entertainment history. When she finally concluded her Vegas era, it marked the end of a chapter that had spanned nearly 2 decades and revolutionized the concept of artist residencies in the entertainment capital of the world. Following her Las Vegas farewell, Céline announced an ambitious world tour called the Courage World Tour, which would take her across North America, Europe, Asia, and other continents. The tour was named after her album Courage, released in November 2019, which represented her first English-language studio album in 6 years. The album's themes of resilience, strength, and moving forward after loss resonated deeply with fans who had watched her navigate unimaginable grief with grace and determination. Songs like Imperfections and Lying Down explored vulnerability and human frailty in ways that felt intensely personal. The Courage World Tour began in September 2019 to critical acclaim and strong ticket sales, with Céline performing with the same vocal power and emotional intensity that had defined her career. She seemed to have found a new lease on life, energized by being back on the road and connecting with audiences around the world. However, the tour was interrupted in March 2020, when the global pandemic forced the cancellation of concerts worldwide. Like millions of other people, Céline found herself in lockdown, spending extended time with her sons and adjusting to a world where live performance had suddenly become impossible. When the world began reopening, Celine planned to resume her tour in March 2021, eager to return to the stage and complete what she had started. However, she began experiencing the mysterious muscle spasms that would eventually be diagnosed as stiff person syndrome. Throughout 2021 and 2022, she was forced to repeatedly postpone tour dates as doctors worked to understand what was happening to her body. The frustration and fear during this period were immense, as she desperately wanted to perform, but her body would not cooperate. The December 2022 announcement of her stiff person syndrome diagnosis brought clarity, but also heartbreak. Celine had to cancel the remainder of her Courage World Tour, acknowledging that she could not predict when or if she would be able to perform again at the level her fans deserved. The admission was devastating for someone whose identity had been so intertwined with performing for over 4 decades. She released an emotional video explaining her condition, visibly struggling with the words as she told her fans that she missed them and was working every day to regain her strength and abilities. The diagnosis of stiff person syndrome forced Celine to confront a reality that no amount of talent, determination, or willpower could simply overcome. This was not a challenge she could rehearse her way through or perfect with practice. The neurological disorder attacks the very foundation of what makes performance possible: the ability to control one's muscles, maintain balance, and move with intention and grace. For someone who had spent her entire life mastering the intricate coordination required to produce her signature sound while commanding a stage, the loss of physical control was both terrifying and profoundly disorienting. Treatment for stiff person syndrome is complex and highly individualized, typically involving a combination of medications to suppress the immune system's attack on the nervous system, muscle relaxants to reduce spasms, and various therapies to maintain mobility and function. Celine committed herself to an intensive treatment regimen that included working with multiple specialists, undergoing regular physical therapy sessions, and taking medications that came with their own challenging side effects. The process was exhausting and often discouraging, with progress measured in tiny increments rather than the dramatic improvements she desperately hoped for. One of the most challenging aspects of living with stiff person syndrome is the unpredictability of symptoms. A person might feel relatively stable one moment and then experience a sudden severe spasm triggered by something as simple as a loud noise or emotional stress. For Celine, whose performances required her to be surrounded by loud music, bright lights, and intense emotional expression, the implications were devastating. Even if she could manage her symptoms during quiet, controlled environments, the very nature of what she did for a living seemed fundamentally incompatible with her condition. Despite these overwhelming obstacles, Celine refused to give up hope or stop fighting for a return to performing. Her social media posts during this period showed glimpses of her working with therapists, practicing exercises, and maintaining the discipline that had always characterized her approach to her craft. She spoke openly about the difficulty of the journey, acknowledging the pain and frustration while also expressing gratitude for the support of her fans and the dedication of her medical team. Her honesty about the struggle resonated with many people facing their own health challenges, making her journey about more than just one woman's fight to return to the stage. In 2023, Celine remained largely out of the public eye as she focused on her health and her family. Her 3 sons, who had already endured the loss of their father, now watched their mother battle a condition that stole her strength and independence. René Charles, who was in his early 20s, and the twins, who were teenagers, provided support and motivation for Celine to keep fighting. She had always been a fiercely devoted mother, and the desire to be present and active in their lives gave her additional purpose beyond her career aspirations. Reports from those close to Celine indicated that she was experiencing both progress and setbacks in her treatment, a common pattern with stiff person syndrome. Some days were better than others, and she learned to celebrate small victories while managing disappointment when symptoms flared. The athletic discipline she had always applied to maintaining her voice and stage presence now shifted to the daily work of managing a chronic neurological condition. She worked with nutritionists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and medical specialists to optimize every aspect of her treatment and maximize her chances of improvement. Throughout this period, speculation about whether Céline would ever perform again remained constant. Some medical experts expressed skepticism that someone with stiff person syndrome could return to the physical demands of professional performance, particularly at the level Céline had always maintained. Others pointed to cases where patients had achieved significant symptom control through aggressive treatment and suggested that hope remained. Céline herself refused to make definitive statements about her future, acknowledging the uncertainty while maintaining her determination to work toward a return to the stage if her body would allow it. The entertainment world watched and waited, with tributes and expressions of support coming from fellow artists who recognized both Céline's legendary status and the courage required to face such a diagnosis publicly. Many performers her age had already retired or significantly scaled back their activities, but Céline was only 56 when diagnosed, an age when many vocalists are still at or near their peak abilities. The cruelty of having her career potentially ended not by age or vocal decline but by a rare neurological disorder struck many as profoundly unjust. In early 2024, news emerged that would give fans unprecedented insight into Céline's battle with stiff person syndrome. It was announced that acclaimed documentarian Irene Taylor was creating a film that would chronicle Céline's life and her struggle with the disease. The documentary, titled I Am Céline Dion, promised intimate access to the singer during one of the most vulnerable periods of her life, showing not just the glamorous performer the world knew, but the woman fighting daily against a condition that threatened everything she had built. The decision to allow cameras into her life during such a difficult time demonstrated Céline's characteristic courage and her desire to use her platform to raise awareness about stiff person syndrome. Given how rare the condition is, most people had never heard of it before her diagnosis. By sharing her story so publicly, she hoped to help others facing similar challenges feel less alone and to contribute to greater understanding and research funding for this devastating disorder. The documentary would premiere on Prime Video in June 2024, giving the world a raw, unfiltered look at her reality. When I Am Céline Dion was released, audiences were deeply moved by what they witnessed. The film showed Céline at her most vulnerable, struggling through therapy sessions, experiencing painful spasms, and grappling with the emotional toll of not being able to do what she loved most. One particularly harrowing scene showed her suffering a severe spasm during a physical therapy session, her body seizing up as medical professionals worked to help her through the episode. The rawness and honesty of these moments shocked viewers who had only known Céline as the polished, powerful performer they had seen on stage. The documentary also revealed the depth of Céline's determination and her refusal to accept that her performing days were over. She spoke candidly about her need to return to the stage, describing it not as a want but as an essential part of who she is. Her identity as a performer was so fundamental to her sense of self that the idea of never singing for an audience again was simply unacceptable to her, regardless of what her diagnosis might suggest about the likelihood of that return. This fierce determination resonated with viewers, many of whom found themselves inspired by her unwillingness to give up. Beyond the health struggles, the documentary provided insight into Céline's life as a mother and her relationship with her sons. Viewers saw tender moments of family interaction and understood more fully how the loss of René continued to shape their daily reality. The boys had grown into young men, with René Charles now in his 20s pursuing his own interests in music and entertainment, while the twins navigated their teenage years. The family's bond was evident, and it became clear that they drew strength from one another during the most challenging period any of them had faced since René's death. The release of I Am Céline Dion sparked global conversation about rare diseases, the pressures faced by performers, and the nature of identity when illness strips away the abilities that define us. Medical professionals praised Celine for bringing attention to stiff person syndrome, noting that increased awareness often leads to faster diagnoses for other patients and potentially more research funding. The Stiff Person Syndrome Research Foundation reported a significant increase in donations and inquiries following the documentary's release, demonstrating the real-world impact of Celine's decision to share her story. In interviews surrounding the documentary's release, Celine expressed cautious optimism about her progress while being realistic about the challenges ahead. She acknowledged that the road was long and that there were no guarantees, but she also spoke about feeling stronger than she had in some time and remaining committed to her rigorous treatment regimen. Her medical team had found a combination of therapies and medications that were helping to manage her symptoms, though she still experienced difficult days and setbacks that reminded her of the disease's unpredictable nature. The summer of 2024 brought a moment that millions of fans had been hoping for but weren't sure they would ever see. Celine made a stunning return to public performance at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics in July. Standing atop the Eiffel Tower, she delivered a breathtaking rendition of Edith Piaf's L'Hymne à l'amour, her voice soaring over the city of light with the power and emotion that had made her legendary. The performance was both a triumph and a statement, proof that despite everything she had endured, the voice that had moved millions for decades remained. The Paris Olympics performance represented a watershed moment in Celine's journey with stiff person syndrome, offering tangible evidence that her years of intensive treatment and unwavering determination were yielding results. The fact that she could stand before a global audience of billions and deliver such a powerful, emotionally resonant performance suggested that she had achieved a level of symptom management that many had doubted was possible. The performance was meticulously planned with her medical team, ensuring that every aspect of the staging and execution accounted for her condition's limitations while allowing her artistry to shine through without compromise. Following the Olympics' triumph, Celine has continued her treatment regimen while carefully considering what the future might hold for her career. She has been cautious about making promises or commitments regarding touring or recording, understanding that managing stiff person syndrome requires ongoing vigilance and that her condition could change at any time. However, the success of the Paris performance has opened doors to possibilities that seemed closed just months earlier. She has spoken about potentially doing select special performances rather than committing to the grueling schedule of a full tour, recognizing that her body may never again tolerate the demands she once placed upon it. Today, Celine divides her time between her homes in Las Vegas and Florida, focusing primarily on her health maintenance and her role as mother to her 3 sons. René Charles has begun exploring his own creative pursuits, including music production and DJing, carrying forward the artistic legacy of both his parents in his own unique way. The twins, Eddie and Nelson, are now teenagers navigating high school and discovering their own interests and passions. Celine has spoken about the joy of watching them grow into independent young men, and the bittersweet reality that René is not there to witness these milestones alongside her. Her days now involve structured therapy sessions, careful attention to nutrition and rest, and regular consultations with her medical team to optimize her treatment protocols. She has become an advocate for stiff person syndrome awareness, using her platform to educate others about the condition and support research initiatives aimed at finding better treatments and ultimately a cure. The vulnerability she has shown in sharing her journey has transformed her public image from untouchable superstar to relatable human being, facing extraordinary challenges with grace and courage. Celine's legacy in music is already secure, with album sales exceeding 250 million copies worldwide, making her one of the best-selling artists of all time. She has won 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, and received countless other honors recognizing her contributions to music and culture. Her influence extends beyond sales and awards to the countless vocalists she has inspired and the emotional connections she has forged with audiences across generations and cultures. Whether she ever performs again on a grand scale or not, her place in music history is permanent and profound. As of today, Celine Dion remains a symbol of resilience, artistry, and the human capacity to endure unimaginable loss and challenge while maintaining dignity and hope. Her battle with stiff person syndrome continues, with each day bringing its own uncertainties and small victories. She has not ruled out the possibility of future performances or even a return to recording, but she approaches these possibilities with realistic understanding of her limitations and deep gratitude for what remains possible. The woman who once sang that her heart would go on has proven through her actions that the sentiment was not merely lyrical but prophetic, a testament to her indomitable spirit and enduring love for the art form that has defined her extraordinary life. And that brings us to the end of Celine Dion's incredible journey. From a small town in Quebec to the biggest stages in the world, from unimaginable loss to inspiring comeback, her story reminds us that true artistry comes from the heart, and that resilience can carry us through even the darkest times. Now, we want to hear from you. What is your favorite Celine Dion song? Is it the timeless My Heart Will Go On, the powerful Because You Loved Me, or perhaps It's All Coming Back to Me Now? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to tell us what city you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more incredible stories like this one, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue bringing you the best content about the lives and legacies of music's greatest legends. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.